Hi guys, it's Celine. Happy New Year from me to you, wherever you are. This is my latest crafting project. It's a box for a little tarot deck that I've been working on pretty much all of the past 10 days or so, on and off. And I have thought that as I'm messing with this, I might as well do a little bit of a witchy check-in and just generally, tell you how things have been and so on and so forth. As well as at the same time show you what exactly I'm doing. This is in more or less the final stages now. I have done quite a bit of gluing and pasting here. I hope this will focus to at least some extent. I have cut out quite a number of those little round bits that you see there are actually printed images of some sort or other from the British Museum website that I talked about last year. Yay, last year. Isn't it good? So, garnet stones and other imagery that is in some way, conducive to the same type of atmosphere. That's the top of the lid. It's much the same, except it does have a couple of nice, images of lions and things like that. So what I'm doing at this point is I have filled in most of the surfaces with, or at least, well, I think all of the surfaces so far, even on the inside of the lid, there's a couple of more things like that, with whatever I want them to have in terms of color. What I'm doing at this point, I'll have to take my glasses off to show you also, is I have used different types of paint here. So I've been talking about my earth paints, my ochre paints, quite a bit already, and I'm struck by a couple of interesting factors here where I'm not sure that we're going to be able to make this out. On here, there's actually, in the dark areas, there's two types of paint, and one of them is a burnt umber, a proper earth pigment, as far as I can tell. There's no reason why that should not be the natural earth ingredient right there. This is a side where you can see really well what that does. So in here you can see that there's areas which actually look rather transparent. Can you see that? So there's dark bits. I'm trying to focus in closer, but that won't work. There's dark bits, and there's also a rather pale edge at the bottom here, which I still have to fill in. But like this part here, even though it's dark brown, it's very transparent. So that I found out that that's what happens with the actual earth pigments, so the natural dyes and paints that are, where actual earth is used as the base. Whereas I've got a different type on hand at the moment, which I got from my dad, and this is an example of that. And I've got a couple more. Let me see. This is another one. So these are man-made. Can you see that there's a slight difference in... Lighting is awful. Anyway, you can see that there's a difference in tone here. This one is more brown and this one's kind of purplish. So these are called Mars pigments. For some reason, nobody seems to really know why that is. And this type of paint it's also iron oxide, same as the earth pigments, but it's much more like chocolatey, and so not transparent compared to the other one. So what I'm doing here is going over all the kind of what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create as much of a sense of depth in all the little bits and bobs that are on here, so that you can, so that it looks from a distance at least like a real, like some type of medieval jewelry box or some such, some such device. And so far what I've got is, I think, from a distance it's fairly convincing. I can still do more details. And I'm just looking at what the different types of paints are doing here as they dry, you know, just seeing what happens. Also, I had to actually put a coat of varnish, of spray varnish, over the whole thing, because as I was continuing to work with this, paint fell off on the other side. So after a couple of sessions of that, I just had it. So yeah. So this is, I'm home alone again. My husband has left me for the office again, and it turns out that we had a very productive Christmas season and holiday sessions and all that. On the other hand, it was also a lot of work, much more than I expected, or than my husband expected, I think. And I'm completely brain frozen, you know, brain frozen and fried at the same time, if that's possible. So that's why I'm just, you know, messing with this stuff here and just trying to, you know, get little easy bits done, actually, where I don't have to worry about any repercussions and things. We've been having some interesting talks and discussions, and things have been they're quite emotional, and I don't know, I suppose it's the same for everybody at the moment, where because you're in lockdown, and not for the first time, but for like the 5th time, that you're finding that what you used to be able to do, like go to the cinema or go out or to a museum or just go shopping or something like that, that it isn't possible. So it turns out you have no distractions from each other whatsoever. In my case and my husband's case, what with our, you know, our past and the way we were, how life has been for us in the past, it's a real test. All of that is just a massive test of how well have you actually done over the past years, in terms of making actual progress in healing. And I think we've done really well, in that we have argued a bit. There was reason to, you know, to have a bit of having a go at each other, certainly, but it was, I think it was productive and healthy most of the time. So I think we have, one thing it turns out that we've learned over the recent past is to talk when we're in real trouble together and we feel like we can't get across what it is that is in our, you know, in our minds. Both of us, we've actually figured out that we can sit and hold a crystal, and the guy with the crystal is the one who talks and the other one listens. So like a talking stick. That worked really well. It was really necessary at one point also to go into that mode where you just have to figure out a way for both of us to be, you know, to have your say, to be able to get words around what it is that's bothering you, and so on. And so yeah, so having the talking stone was perfect. It was just the way to not interrupt each other constantly, which is something I certainly do, and not, you know, not get this constant back and forth of where the other one, who's less verbally articulate, I suppose, has to fight for every word, you know, to get any words in towards me. And so that was a really good plan to have that stone. All in all, we haven't really completely resolved what's bothering us, and a lot of it has to do with old patterns and even probably with family patterns, because we've done quite a bit of astrology as well in the past couple of days, recent days certainly. We have done quite a bit of research into my husband's family tree, and it's interesting how things that you thought you knew are becoming, I suppose, more visible in one way or another. Even about people that are long gone, ancestors of his that he's never really thought about, but that had a massive impact on his, for example, his father. And so where my husband has always been told that he looks like his dad a lot, he certainly does physically look like his dad a lot, we haven't really had much of a chance, and certainly I haven't had much of a chance to get to know him, also because we lived in Amsterdam at the time that my dad-in-law was still alive. And by the time we moved to this area around here, he started, I think, to develop dementia, or he did quite soon afterwards. And it was just, there were, you know, those types of circumstances with a second marriage, and people are trying to protect each other from God knows what, and it just got really hard to. It got impossible. It was just completely impossible to talk to them, him and his second wife, in a manner that was actually any use to any of us. So, I suppose what you get with traumatized people is always more or less a set of patterns that is the same, certainly for me also, where there are just parts inside you where you haven't actually done any growing up. You just behave and feel in exactly the same way as you used to do when you were 5 years old. Great. It's great. And not in every part of us, not all the time, and it's not visible most of the time. You have no real clue that you are feeling the same way as you used to feel when you were 5 years old, and that some things are just when things are triggering, that's actually what's happening. You're thrown back into a pattern, and because mentally you have grown quite a bit, and you've sort of even disconnected to a large extent from you know, the memories and the actual field of the actual interference patterns, I don't know, that used to be there for us when we were 5 years old, actually, when that was actually really the case. You're talking about the early 1970s here. So it's been quite a while, and a lot of the patterns on the outside have changed massively, and it just it's quite hard to recognize that you're thrown back into. It just gets very uncomfortable and very hard to put into words. A lot of the stuff that's bothering us just gets very hard to explain, and you just have to make yourself get used to that again if you want to acknowledge those parts of you that are still to a large extent controlling how you behave, you know, and how you feel. If you just get prodded hard enough, it comes up again, and it just becomes really almost impossible not to fall into that type of behavior again, or, you know, the feeling like a victim, feeling like you have no say in things, feeling like you're powerless, and all that type of stuff. So, among many other things, and, you know, magical thinking and all sorts of other types of stuff like that. I don't know why I'm saying magical thinking, but a way of not, you know, not being rational, which is, of course, an invention of puberty or afterwards. So yeah, so it can be really hard. And we got through all that. And what with the patterns, I think, oh yeah, I was talking about the astrology of this. It turns out that there's a larger number of people who are who may be connected to this whole scenario in the past, as in people who influenced the parents of whichever person in the whole diagram. So, for example, let me just share with you one little example here of the things we've been looking at, and I still need to do quite a bit of birth chart, analysis and things like that. But I first had to get my brain back in order before I could actually get into that. But it turns out that my husband's grandfather on his dad's side, he is the child of his father was one of a twin. The twin died, was it a couple of days or a day or so? I think a day or so after they were born. So it was really stunning for us to find another twin, actually another lost twin, in my husband's family, in my husband's ancestors, like that. Actually, we found this twin in the archives, so you just had to know exactly where to look to get that intel, and there's actual archives. It's actually, the handwritten birth, records, in the records of the area where those people came from. So it was a real lucky find for us to find that twin, because my husband is a womb twin survivor, and so far we had very few or actually no indications of any more twins happening in the family line at all. So even as I talk about it now, I'm like, wow, it's quite, it's like synchronicity, having to dig up that stuff, and it's impressive what happens when you find that there's actually more twins. It's like a validation, I suppose, of a lot of what my husband's been going through and how he's gone through things and so on and so forth. And a vanished twin situation very often leads to even stronger patterns of victimization, isolation, and all that stuff. Much more than for a non-twin, a non-womb twin survivor. So there was that. And now what we found, we found this actually, I don't know, a year ago or so, that we actually found this, and we were at that point we were quite relieved to figure this out and to have this information, because it supported us in a lot of other things. And people who don't, like other relatives who don't really completely get the vanished twin thing, they don't, they feel like, okay, so why is this such a big deal? Because it's really hard to explain why this is such a big deal. Anyway, the other thing, what we found now, is that, and this is very common, I've seen it certainly a lot of times before now, where a child actually died, a boy, at 1.5 years of age, and was it a year later or so, another boy was born, and he actually became my husband's grandfather. So the one of the set of twins, of whom one died, was his father. It's the great-grandfather, right, who was one of a set of twins. He got a little boy at one point in the 1900s, in the 19th century, I should say, who passed away. And 1.5 years later, or a year later or so, they got another boy who was born and who ended up being the father of my husband, right? So what they did is they gave the second boy the same name. My husband actually also has that name. The first of the two little boys, I hope you can still follow my track here, is he passed away on my husband's birthday, so the 23rd of March, 1887. My husband was born in 1960, so it's like way later. You can call this an accident, or you don't. So either way, I have no clue to explain any relevance of this to anybody, to him or to you, as it is. I have to look at the charts. Of course, the date of death of this child will have many similarities to a 23rd of March at a later or any kind of a stage in history. There's a lot of things that are the same for a 23rd of March or a 6th of August or whatever else what kind of a date you're looking at. Some patterns are the same. The sun is going to be in more or less the same part of the sky. Mercury and Venus are going to be more or less the same part of the sky, and those kinds of things, I actually even have times of birth and death in this case that I found in the archives, so I can have really detailed charts with ascendants and houses and the whole lot of it. So that's rather cool. And as soon as I am kind of done here with all this fiddly stuff, I intend to go and have a proper look at those charts, but because there's quite a number of them by now, I have charts for, I don't know, about 6 family members that are connected to this situation where it seems like we are getting into a past life scenario for my husband that is actually more tangible and more physical and closer to us than we have been able to figure out so far. So it's quite interesting. It's a bit scary and a bit hocus pocusy, I think. So, yeah, this is what I do with my life, normally. So I am more or less finished with this side of things here. What else can I say? The cards that go in this box. Why am I making this box? I'm making the box for these cards. These are nearly finished. That's a Marseille Queen of Wands there. This is a deck that I found on the British Museum website. I've been talking about this already a couple times. It's the King of Swords. I am really looking forward to working with this. I'm looking for let's have a card that actually has a nice face here. This is the Knight of Wands. And you won't be able to see, I guess. I'm struck each time at how nice those faces are. In the original deck, the deck is actually bound as a booklet together. So they're printed and the whole thing is turned into a book. And this image here is on each back of each card, except in life size, so the real size of the card. And I've made little ones, like postage stamp size, to stick on the backs of these, to save ink, mainly, because I thought it was okay to have little versions like this. And this is quite an old, late 17th century deck, and I particularly like the faces, the expressions. There's quite a number of really good expressions in here. Let me take out a couple more. See whether I can show you any of these. Here's the Magician. They're not in any order, of course, because I was just finishing off the edges. The 7 of Swords, like so. And here's maybe, this is the Page of Pentacles. I hope you can see his face. They've got real nice, gentle, and quite different faces on them. So there are 4 cards that are actually missing from this deck. And what I did is I looked up other decks, similar decks, and nicked cards from those to complete my Bertie deck. This deck is actually not in a modern, not available in a modern print version, and I suppose it's because it's incomplete in the version that is found there. Here's Temperance. Can you see her face? I hope that just comes out somehow. They're really funny. They're really, yeah, different. They're very human looking. Somehow it's quite relatable. And what with working on the cards, I've been, you know, pasting and gluing them, and I've sanded the edges around, and I will end up by, you know, finishing edging off the cards with some of this stuff as well, so that they don't look like pasted cardboard edges like so much, which is what they look like at the moment, which you won't be able to see anyway. It's been quite you know, it's been quite a rough time really, and the astrology for the coming month and a bit or so, or maybe slightly less than a month, is actually telling me that we're not completely done yet. There's a couple of tricky moon phases coming up, and then again Mars is moving to Taurus, whatever that, you know, I'm not making any pronouncements as to how, where it will turn, and whether we will finally be able to breathe a sigh of relief. I certainly hope so. In terms of Tumo, things have been going really well, and part of the troubles, if you like, or slight, you know, communication issues that we've been having, my husband and I, has been due to you know, increased Shakti activity in both our lives. And my husband's been doing some Shakti work as well, and he hasn't really he doesn't really get around to making it into proper Tumo yet, which would be really surprising. I posted a video last week about the ghost womb situation. It's a bit hard to come to any conclusions at the moment. Just everything is just too complex, and it's just not possible to sort of look forward yet and come to a conclusion and then build a plan of action on that with all this stuff going on. And I have been making quite a bit of progress incorporating Matumo energy in this whole area. I've made a start on a diagram that I will show you guys at one point when I'm, you know, feeling more confident about it all. A diagram of the human torso with the spine in it, where you can actually see what the energy flow is of the Tumo, and where the dantians are in that, and so on, and where so it becomes more obvious, I hope, with that diagram also, you know, to compare the dantians to the chakras, and all that will be more, it will be easier to see the difference between the actual, you know, things that are going on. As far as I've been able to tell so far, it looks like the whole Dantien business is really important to Tumo. You cannot really do Tumo without knowledge of the Dantians. dantians. I will put a link to the Wikipedia page about the dantian in the description to this video, because I think that's really useful. What happens is that I think what I've seen so far is that dantians are, 3 of them are actually only energy centers, so they process Shakti energy basically, and I think they always do that, whether you're aware of it or working with it or not. It's just that it's the natural state of affairs. That's what they're for. Whereas chakras are not only vibrational but also emotional components. So they're like it's a whole different level. And I've been noticing so far that there's differences between the first level tumo in the belly, mainly, that's where that starts, and the second level tumo, which has to do all this work here for self-expression and identity and all that stuff. So I'm taking quite a bit of time to get that properly done until I feel more comfortable with it, and I'm starting to already feel quite a bit more comfortable with my whole tumo story as it's going so far. So I've been doing quite a lot of work in here, different points, heart area proper, thymus area in here, you know. It turns out that that's, maybe there's another link I can give you. The thymus area up here is a meridian controller, so it has, the more energy that gets, the more energy gets expressed into us, you know, into our meridian. So that will be really good for your health also. Also because if it gets into here, and then all your meridians are going to get, you know, the food they need, and that should, you know, help stay healthy and stuff like that. So that sounds pretty interesting to me. I've been doing some work in here, in my throat area, and in here as well. And what with, you know, me having a history of tonsil problems and all that, I'm just taking that quite easy and one day at a time. Because, you know, otherwise I don't want to go. I occasionally have felt really, you know, like heated up with all this energy work. So you have to make sure you manage, make sure you're still there the next day, right? So that's why I'm going quite easy on this whole process. I think that's what I have to say at this point. I'm really glad that I'm still here. We're all, you know, it's fine. We're managing quite fine. I just have to be a bit alert on those coming moon phases. I'm just going to take it one step at a time. And I hope you can, you know, see things coming and for yourself, and just keep safe. And as always, thank you for watching. Okay. And I actually managed to fill more than half an hour with my little paints and bits. I'm looking forward to working with my Bertie deck. Turns out there's an Italian shop, a publisher of decks, and his name is Giordano Betti. And he's got a website where he publishes these gorgeous, you know, tarot, medieval or Renaissance tarot decks, and a couple of others that I've been looking at, but they're a bit over my price range. Normally, I would never, you know, really go for that, even though it all looks really attractive. But you get, you know, sets of with a book and all the intel and all the rest of it, which I don't really need myself. And I much rather would be, you know, fiddling with my paints and things, because I've got those anyway. And it turns out I've got a bit of a different type of a tarot collection from other people's. I do have a Mystic Masters on the way, yes, which is a great deal of fun, because it's actually, you can actually see in the track and trace history nearly every day some type of progress is being made. So it's in Miami now, my deck, and it's been transferred, I think yesterday or so, from the national to the global postal service. So I'm excited, you know. Every day it's like looking at whatever else has happened for my Mystic Masters, which is a very different approach to this whole thing, and we will just see where it all fits in. But I'm very confident that I'll be able to use that deck very easily, and it will be such a comfort to have next to the other ones. We have done quite a bit of cards. My husband's done more cards than more spreads and things than I have, actually, because that's how it tends to go when he's around. He just gets a holiday, he's got all this stuff that he needs to sort out, and I'm just basically here to help him. And after a week or so of that, I just really need to catch my breath and figure out whether I still have a life or not, So, thank you for watching. I hope this is in one way or another even slightly entertaining. And I do have quite a number of plans for videos about the whole Tumo business, but today I thought I would just do a bit of a check-in and tell you guys that I'm actually still alive. So there you go. I hope you're okay where you are, and bless you, and see you soon. Okay, ciao.